With something like 5 million podcasts, finding a really good one can take a ton of time. So let me recommend one. It's called Something You Should Know. I'm the host, Mike Carruthers, and in each episode, we discuss topics that can be really helpful, like how to read people better, the psychology of crowds, or fun things like the story of Legos, or why you probably wouldn't be here if it weren't for horses. Something You Should Know is the name of it, wherever you get your podcasts.
Contained herein are the heresies of Radolf Antoinette, erstwhile monk turned traveling medical investigator. Join me as I study the secrets of the divine plagues and uncover the blasphemous truth that ours is not a loving God, and we are not its favored children. The heresies of Radolf Antoinette, wherever podcasts are available.
Hello and welcome to Vulgar History, a feminist women's history comedy podcast. My name is Anne Foster, and this is part 2 of a 2-part episode. Last week, we had special guest, friend of the podcast, frequent collaborator Allison Epstein was on, and we're talking about the Marquis de Lafayette. Last week ended in a cliffhanger, and this week we're gonna see how this guy's story turns out. And you might notice this is a women's history podcast, and we're talking about a man, and that's because gender has no binary. We mostly talk about women on the show, but when a man is imbued with this much tits out energy, I can't not do it. And so we're continuing the saga of the Marquis de Lafayette, and enjoy hearing the second part of this saga.
Right. And this is where I was like, why would you not be fighting out in the streets, Lafayette? This is your bread and butter. You love this. But, you know, he's
bros with the king.
He's bros with the king. He's doing more than honestly could probably be expected for most of the nobility by trying to find a middle path. So, like, I still feel comfortable loving him in this situation. But it is like, okay. So 1789 continues. Things are still getting worse and worse. There is, again, with the modern day parallels, there's a women's march on the palace in Paris to protest the price of bread, because this is let them eat cake time.
The farming and the grain. And you know what? I honestly, the price of groceries, like this is all like very 2024. Yeah.
Yeah. So Lafayette goes over to the palace when this is happening, like in his capacity as head of the National Guard, chief of police. And he sees this giant mob of people coming at the king. And he decides what he's going to do is sort of try to stage this, like almost like a play almost, to calm people down. So he brings the king and Marie Antoinette onto the balcony of the palace just to show that, like, hey, me, the Marquis de Lafayette, cool revolutionary guy, member of the National Assembly, I like these people. I think they're pretty cool. They're bros with me. And he famously kisses Marie Antoinette's hand on the balcony in front of the angry crowd to, like, try and bring the tensions down.
That's not gonna do that.
No, it doesn't. But he, like, made a big deal of it, and all of the history books mention it, and he really tried. She hated him, so she didn't enjoy this. I don't think he liked her very much, but he was trying to be like, can we all just be friends and get along at this point?
Are you going to explain at some point why they hated each other? Or can you now?
I think they hated each other because he had overthrown a king and was this big, like, liberal guy who was fighting with the people to, like, pass the Declaration of the Rights of Man, and she was sort of not into that. I also feel like they're just two really loud personalities. Like, you can't have two people as charismatic as Marie Antoinette and Lafayette in the same room and have them get along, I don't think. So I think some of it's just interpersonal, but some of it is, he is actively trying to take away power from the French crown to, like, find this centrist path, and she's not loving that.
Okay.
So that brings us to 1790, when Lafayette is still trying to, like, smooth things over with everybody. Bless him, he tries this for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
There's this scene on the Champ de Mars, which is like a center square in Paris, where he takes an oath in front of the mob to be forever loyal to, quote, the king and the National Assembly. And I'm like, bruh, you can't, that doesn't mean anything. You can't do that. It's like, I swear to be loyal to the revolution and the monarchy at the same time. Bro.
No, and again, it just feels like a real 2024 thing to be like, there's issues on both sides.
Exactly.
Sort of.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. And just like in 2024, the people hear this and they're like, a royalist. We found one. He loves the king and hates the revolution. Fantastic. We have no nuance of this.
Right. But, well, I mean, I know he's good at sword fighting, etc. But like, they're not going after him.
Not yet. Okay. No. Now they're just like, we're suspicious of this man. Don't trust the cops, basically.
Yeah. French version, ACAB. Yeah.
AMAB, all marquis are bastards. I know you'll get into this in your Marie Antoinette episodes, but 1791 is sort of where things start to fall the fuck apart for the monarchy and everybody else. And in like the summer of this, there's a sequence of events that's called the Flight to Varennes, which is basically when Louis XVI, Marie Antoinette, who are now like hiding in the Tuileries Palace in Paris, trying to stay out of the way of the revolution, decide that they're going to try to escape. And they're going to get out of the country. I think they're going to Austria or wherever Marie Antoinette's Habsburg's family are at that point.
Yeah.
And so they like sneak out in a carriage under cover of darkness and they're like headed for the border, basically. And this all happens right under Lafayette's nose as chief of police. Basically, he's supposed to be sort of watching them and making sure nobody gets away. So this is like really bad news for him because people already think he's a royalist. And now it looks like he's letting the king and queen escape. He sets off with like a bunch of National Guardsmen, soldiers, and catches them and brings them back. So he's like doing his job, but it's sort of too late at that point. The escape attempt already has people think that he's an enemy of the people, and like the big names of the French Revolution, the Dantons, the Robespierres are like, you're a traitor and enemy of the people and we hate you and you hate the revolution. It's like, okay, please calm down. He brought them back. But that goes on. And then literally like 2-3 weeks after that, there is another protest in the middle of Paris where one of the revolutionary groups is trying to like collect signatures on a petition to abolish the monarchy. So
that's how you get things done.
That's how you do it. A change.org petition. But there's also like a big group. There's a crowd of like 50,000 people there trying to get signatures and also protesting and yelling and I'm sure singing revolutionary songs and whatever. And Lafayette, who's in charge of like keeping things together under public order, is like, shit, this is a mob of 50,000 people. I don't know what to do. So he tries to calm the crowd and it doesn't work. And things get out of hand. And then Lafayette orders the National Guard to fire on the crowd of civilians and about 50 people die. And it's bad. It's bad. Like, he's in a very bad position and I get that. But yeah, also yikes.
Yeah.
But this is, that's the beginning of the end for the revolution being like, let's let this guy stay around. So to his credit, he knows that. He's like, ooh, I should get out of Paris. That went really, really badly and I shouldn't be here right now. So he goes home and like tries to keep his head down. But the French Revolution is getting progressively more violent. This is getting into like the period of the terror, 92, 93, where like...
When is the guillotine invented?
I don't know when it's invented, but I think it's around this period and it's going to really start getting used in like 93.
Okay.
So 1792 in August is when like the mob of civilians storms the palace and arrests the king and queen and abolishes the monarchy. So at the same time, an arrest warrant is issued for Lafayette as enemy of the people. He's so intertwined with the king and queen at this point that they're like, oh, we'll get the king and his asshole Marquis as well. Fuck that guy. And he says goodbye to his wife and kids and dips out of town. He's like, I gotta fucking go. They're gonna kill me. They're burning effigies of him in the streets of Paris. So it's a great time to get out of town.
To his credit, he read the room.
Yeah.
Now,
The room was very loud, to be fair.
Yeah, no, you would think. But no, in a few weeks ago when we did the Madame du Barry episode, she was just like, everything's fine.
Oh.
Like, don't worry about this. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to go to England and then come back and then go to England and then come back. It's like, oh, what's this? Revolutionaries rolling the decapitated head of my lover towards me in my home. She's like, oh, that's fine. My jewels went missing. I'm going to post pamphlets describing them and giving my address. Like,
Lord. Yeah, no, he read the room.
To his credit, he took this seriously in a way that she did not. So,
yes, good for him. So he fucking ran for it late 1792 and headed for Austria.
Oh, I was going to say America. No, okay.
No, that would have been smart, honestly.
Yeah.
And he probably should have done that because everybody in Europe knows who he is. He's the most famous dirtbag Marquis revolutionary hero ever. Like,
yeah.
So he is immediately, like the second he gets across the border into Austria, he is captured and sent to prison as, ironically, a member of the French Revolution. He's arrested for his involvement in overthrowing the French monarchy, which, like...
Well, this is like an era, you know what, not different from today in the sense of like misinformation and whatever. But that was like, everything was being communicated via letters, you know, that take like a while to get to the other place. So everyone would just be confused of what was going on and who was on what side, probably.
And you know, like, the thing is, though, if you're the Emperor of Austria and you hear about this guy, Marquis de Lafayette, who's swearing his allegiance to the National Assembly and the king, the one you're going to be worried about is, oh, he's selling his allegiance to the National Assembly. That must be a revolutionary. Like, he's trying to walk this middle road in a way that gets both sides pissed off at him. So, like, he can't win really whatever he's doing here.
He was the Chapel Roan of his time.
He was hot to go. And by go, I mean get the fuck out of Paris. It's on fire.
Now, I don't know exactly, but I believe that the Austria is where Marie Antoinette is from. So I think they're especially cautious about anyone who is maybe on the revolutionary side due to Marie Antoinette having been arrested by the mob. So the Austrian emperor, who is, I think, her brother.
I think so. Who I think does not send very much help to her, so I'm not sure how useful they are. But
I don't know, but I think he's also the guy from the movie Amadeus.
Yes.
Anyway, so Lafayette arrested in Austria. Okay.
Yes. And so he's arrested as like a prisoner of the state. And this is 1792. And he stays in prison from 1792 until 1797. He's in prison for 5 years.
But not executed.
But not executed.
Good?
No.
Yes. Because you could put him in prison, but you can't be mad at that guy.
You can't be mad at that guy. He's so charming. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he gets moved like from prison to prison throughout these years. He's transferred all over the place. And throughout all of this time, he's writing letters to like his buds from the American Revolution, being like, hey, excuse me, do you remember when I gave up all of my money and all of those ships and 6 years of my life to fight in your revolution? Could you please like help me get out of prison? Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, any of y'all fuckers? And they didn't do shit. They didn't do shit. There was like a diplomatic crisis between France and America at the time because France was diplomatically problematic for everybody. They're in a revolution. No one wants to like do trade deals with them. So
yeah.
It was a bad time. The one person who did try to help Lafayette break out of prison during this time, Angelica Schuyler from the Broadway musical Hamilton.
Work. She's Renee Elise Goldsberry.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I love it. She married an English guy, as noted in Act 2 of Hamilton, and moves to London. And she knew Lafayette because everybody knew Lafayette. She was, up in the founding father boardroom with everybody else. And she paid a doctor to come and look at him and then like sneak him into a carriage and go off in the middle of the night. They got caught and he got sent back, so it didn't work. But like, go off, Angelica. I love that.
Good for her. You know what? She tried. That was a good plan.
It's more than fucking George Washington did.
Yeah.
And Lafayette didn't name his kid after Angelica Schuyler. This is where I get real fucking indignant about George Washington as a Lafayette girly. I'm just like, He loved you so much and you did nothing. Nothing.
This is where I don't remember the years exactly, but I feel like George Washington was busy being like a bitch and just being like, I don't want to be president. I don't like living in New York. Meh. I just want to be in my like slave plantation. Meh. Like he was just busy whining and being president and not wanting to be president. And his Martha Washington is just Revolutionary Karen is just being like, I hate it here too. Meh. Like,
yeah,
he was not in a mental space to help other people. George Washington was busy having a pity party for two.
Yes, he was. So throughout all of this is sort of the French Revolution happens off screen.
Well, he's in jail. Okay.
He's in jail. Yeah. He misses the rest.
No, but this is good because, I'm going to get into other episodes that'll talk about, meanwhile, the revolution. Like, you really set us up beautifully for, like, how it happened and why. And that's probably, in future episodes, I'll talk about, like, this next part of the revolution. Yeah.
I know you will get into all of that. So my notes do say, meanwhile, the rest of the revolution happens. We don't need to get into it.
But, like, to Lafayette, it's just like, meanwhile, he's in prison. I don't know, whatever. Like,
it sucks. And because he's in prison for 5 years and nothing happens, I asked you if we could take a sidebar into my favorite part of the French Revolution, and you said yes. So I'm going to hold you to it and talk briefly about the French Republican calendar, my favorite thing.
I don't think you asked me if you could do that. I think I asked you if you would do that. I think we simultaneously were like, but we're going to talk about Brumaire, right?
It's so fucking weird and I love it so much.
It's my favorite thing too. Okay.
Okay. So like, 1793 into 1794, the French were like, you know what? Our old calendar is too royalist. The names of the months have like Roman emperors in them, and all of monarchist history uses those dates. You know what we're going to do is we're going to make an entirely new calendar starting right now. We're going to change the length of the months. We're going to change the length of a week. We're going to change the name of every day and every month, just to fucking make it impossible for historians in the future to know what's going on.
No, but did they start with 0? Where they're like, we're in the year 0 now?
Yes, they started the calendar over. Yeah.
Amazing.
Because this is a new age of liberty or some shit like that.
It's my favorite thing. When I was doing my history undergraduate degree, I don't remember what class this was in or in what context, but I just remember, maybe it was just learning about the French Revolution, but they're just like, okay, so like this happened, and it's like the 15th Brumaire brackets, May 3rd. Like everything had to be like, this happened on this day, brackets, here's the actual day.
Yeah.
Like
this fake ass calendar that didn't last, it lasted like 10 years. But like, it's 10 years in which so much history happened that it shows up all over the place.
It would just be so complicated in the time. Also, if you're trying to do like trade with another country, it's like, okay, when is the shipment of grain coming? Well, could you send it on the 77th of Brumaire? Like, I'm sorry, what
is that? France?
Like, I'm going to come and visit you. Could you like book me a hotel room for like...
Oh my God. Yeah. And I love the goofy ass names that they gave to everything because
everything is
goofy. Every month is named after like the sort of weather that they have in France during that month. So like Brumaire means like the sort of foggy month. And then there's like Germinal, which is the month when the cherry trees start to blossom. I'm like, the fuck, France? And they rename into the days of the week so that it's like Primidi, Duodi, Tridi. That's 1 day, 2 day, 3 day. That's how they renamed the days of the week.
So how many days of the week? Because it's not 7 days, 30 days
10.
in a month.
It's 10 days
in a week?
Yes. For reasons.
I would accept that if...
And there are 30 days in each month. So...
Okay.
It's actually a very reasonable system if anybody else was using it, except they need to have every 4 years an extra day and then every couple of months an extra day too, because the math doesn't work out.
Yeah. Not to give any credit to Napoleon at all, but this reminds me of, I was at work, I think. We were like, what? I think we were talking about like how Americans use different measuring things from like any other country in the world.
Yeah.
Like, because other countries are metric, American not. And then we're like, how did that come to be? And then just looking back at it on like wikipedia.com/weights and measures or whatever. Anyway, so like all different countries used to use all different kinds of weights and measures. And then it was Napoleon who was like, let's standardize this.
The metric system. Napoleon.
So when I want to have like 500 pounds of grain, you in like Tunisia know what I mean by that.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, that makes so much sense for like, because there's in this era, there's so much international commerce and trade and stuff
for like
going
the
on.
first time.
I know. And so it's like for France at this time to be like, let's change the calendar.
The days. One other fun fact about this calendar that I love is that every day of every month is assigned its own little plant. So that you could get calendars where every day had a drawing of a little herb in it. And that was the day. Like, I'm looking at the French Revolutionary calendar right now, and I don't know what the fuck day today is, but like the 6th, we're recording this on October 6th. And so like the 6th day of the 10th month of this fucked up calendar was the day of rosemary. It's just so cute.
It's so cute. And like artists out there listening, like if you make a French Revolutionary calendar, I will order one.
Sometimes they have little animals. One of the days is the day of the otter.
This is also like a real group project vibe of like make a calendar and you kind of choose 12 kids in your like grade 5 class. And they're like, it should be like this. And then one kid is like, no, but there should be a plant for every day. And it's like, no, but they should be sometimes animals. Like, and every idea is accepted.
Well, yeah, because we're all equal under the revolution and no bad ideas. Perfect.
Yeah. I love this. I love there was something in one of the books I was reading from my Carolina Brunswick book that did mention, sorry, the only month I know is Brumaire. I just always say Brumaire. But it mentioned something, one of those dates I was like, Brumaire? My favorite month of the year.
There's like, the months are like Pluvias, which is the rainy month, or Prairial, the month where you can go out into the fields. It's just so goofy.
And also, like, just in terms of, like, this is the French Revolution. It's happening, like, primarily in Paris, I presume. Yeah. How do you communicate this to somebody way up in some other rural area? Like, by the time it's like, hey, guess what? We're calling this month this now. They'll be like,
the fuck we are.
What the fuck are you talking about?
What?
It's August. No. It's not. Oh, my God.
Oh, they're fun.
This is great. And listeners, Allison has a link here in this document of the names of the days of the week. I will put that link in the show notes so people can just really get into this because it's a personal highlight to me of this whole era.
Yeah, for anybody who's born on what I think is June 25th, which is the day of tuna, I am so sorry.
Oh, it's fantastic. This is great. Okay.
So just back to timeline.
So Lafayette was in jail from the pre-midi for 5 years, however you communicate that in this calendar. Yeah.
Yes. But one nice thing happened while he was in jail 2 years after he had been arrested, and it's that his wife is the best wife of all time. Remember when I said they were the cutest?
They are the cutest. No, and I'm excited to hear that. But I was just imagining also, he writes a letter to somebody, and then she writes back being like, hey, it's not called August anymore. Here's a matrix. And he's like, Adrian, you sent me a letter. And it said at the top, Brumaire?
What the fuck is this? I leave y'all alone for 12 months.
And she's like, no.
It's actually been 9 months. Don't worry about it. We changed the length of the months.
Yeah. And today is actually the day of the tuna. And he's just like, what is happening?
Am I having a breakdown?
Yeah. Because, like at the top of a formal letter, you like write the date. Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah. I wonder what it was like to tell him that. But they talked in letters all this time, Marie Antoinette and Lafayette. And then in 1795, Marie Antoinette said, you know what? Fuck this. No one's going to help my husband. I'm going to go help my husband. And she and her 2 daughters, Marie Antoinette and Anastasie, rode to Austria from France mid-revolution and talked to the Emperor of Austria and said, you should let Lafayette go. He didn't do anything wrong. He's fine. And the emperor said, no, he is a revolutionary and a danger, and we are not going to let him go. And so Marie Adrienne said, okay, can we stay in prison with him then? I miss him. He's my husband. And the emperor said yes. And so one day in 1795, they open the door to Lafayette's prison cell, and his wife and daughters come in, and they're like, we're going to stay with you for the rest of this, bestie, because we love you so much. And it's just, they stayed there for 2 years after that together, just like living their little family life in prison. And it's just like, also he was rich. So like, this is sort of like Tower of London-y prison, where it's not like, he's not living underground in a cell. It's not horrible. It's just like,
yeah, no, I was going to say, this very much reminds me of at the Tower of London, there's these apartments, and it was Walter Raleigh and his wife, Bess Throckmorton.
mm-hmm.
And it's like, he was in prison, that they just made these apartments, and it was just like a nice room with like a fireplace. It was like literally apartments. It wasn't like a small cell.
It was fine. I don't think they were like super nice because they were mad at him, but like they were okay. You could bring a kid in.
Yeah, it was like a tiny house.
Yeah.
Like you can live there. Like there's rooms. There's beds. Yeah. But that's badass. I love that. Badass. I love that. We've had a couple, I think of like Lady Catherine Grey, who was like imprisoned next to her husband, and they like snuck to see each other and stuff. But this is like, I'm going to stay with my jail husband. And
and he's like, I would really rather you didn't go in prison. And she's like, fuck off. I'm coming in prison. I love you. Don't worry about it.
She's great. She's great.
So great.
You mentioned the two daughters, but what happened to George Washington Lafayette?
He, I believe, let me check my
he
notes.
Didn't
I wrote
child
it down.
Die.
No, he's still alive. He's fine. I think
he's like up at like army school or something, probably.
He was in America at this point. He was doing a little America tour.
George Washington Lafayette.
Yeah, I think he was in America when the revolution broke out, and he was like, perhaps I should not come back right now. Which, good call.
This family has sense, and that's so rare.
It really, really is. We love it.
I could just have like still just memories of the Madame du Barry of it all. But like, these are people making good decisions.
They're reading the room and going, oh, this room is bad for me. Perhaps I shouldn't stay in that room. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so like family jail time, 2 years. Yes.
Yep. And then by like 1797, the most of the French Revolution has sort of blown over. The new directorate, which is like the provisional government, is in place. People are no longer guillotining each other every day. And
who's in charge?
It's a great question. Right now, basically nobody. Like some nobody politicians who no one remembers their names. It's sort of like a parliament situation. There's not a king, but we don't have an emperor yet. This is the in-between bits.
It's just kind of like, just a group project, just like a bunch of people.
This is like, okay, we killed all of the revolutionaries during the terror, so let's like take a look around. Who's left?
We killed all the aristocrats. We killed all the royals. We killed past revolutionary leaders. Like,
no,
exactly, who's left?
What do we do? So
who's left is like soldiers mostly, right?
Mostly, yeah. So Lafayette gets released under the advice of one of the French generals who's kind of sort of running things at this point, becoming more and more powerful. Gives me no pleasure to report that this general is none other than Napoleon Bonaparte, who helps get Lafayette out of prison.
Oh,
I know. I was like, no, not Napoleon doing a thing that's helpful for my boy. I hate it.
This is, well, Napoleon did one good thing in his life, and this was it.
One good thing. So Lafayette gets freed. He's 40 years old at this point. I'm sure he feels like he's 95 years old, but he is 40.
Wow, he's lived the life of... It's like sometimes in other episodes of this podcast, all this stuff happens. I'm like, and then she died. She was 21. And
exactly.
It's like... What? I thought she was like 76. Yeah. Okay, so
That's
he's 40.
A lot. He's 40.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So he goes home. No, actually, he doesn't go home. I lied. Because still France is sort of like a mess. And he's not super welcome in France, even though he's not arrested in Austria. So I think he moves into like the French consulate in Hamburg for like a couple of years because he's sort of like a man without a country, a man without a home. But he's hanging out. His son comes home. They're all together. They're doing the best they can. And
I think this is where like his charm and his pleasant demeanor people would be happy to have him as a house guest and stuff. Like
exactly. He's charming. He's not causing any problems. He just wants to be left alone at this point. He's fresh out of prison. Just give me a minute to catch my breath. And he gets 2 years to catch his breath until November 1799, which may be better known as 1799, the month of Brumaire.
Brumaire.
He's back.
Oh. And now for a quick advertising break.
What's up, everyone? It's Noah Daniels.
Hey, y'all, I'm JJ.
Hey, guys, it's Kat.
And we're your hosts of the Real Hauntings podcast, where we bring on guests who share their first-hand encounter ghost stories and supernatural experiences. Now on to the trailer.
I've been warned to not tell this story, but I think because of the way it ends, it's okay to tell this story, because some people say that with certain entities, to like speak of them or talk about them or in any way like portray them as powerful will attract them to other people. The creepiest thing about it to me is a lot of times it would wait for me to notice it. Like, it would just lay its arm out like this, and then I'd be like, where is it? Where is it? And then I'd see it, and then it would just slither back.
For more information on the Real Hauntings, Real Ghost Stories podcast, make sure you check out real.fm to learn more about our podcast and many other amazing podcasts.
Hi, I'm Jennifer, a founder of the Go Kid Go network. At Go Kid Go, putting kids first is at the heart of every show that we produce. That's why we're so excited to introduce a brand new show to our network called The Search for the Silver Lining, a fantasy adventure series about a spirited young girl named Isla who time travels to the mythical land of Camelot. Look for The Search for the Silver Lining on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you love Disney? Then you are going to love our hit podcast, Disney Countdown. I'm Megan, the Magical Millennial.
And I'm the Dapper Danielle.
On every episode of our fun and family-friendly show, we count down our top 10 lists of all things Disney. There is nothing we don't cover.
We are famous for rabbit holes, Disney-themed games, and fun facts you didn't know you needed, but you definitely need in your life. So if you're looking for a healthy dose of Disney magic, check out Disney Countdown wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, join me, Megan Rinks.
And me, Melissa DeMonts, for Don't Blame Me, But Am I Wrong?
Each week, we deliver 4 fun-filled shows.
In Don't Blame Me, we tackle our listeners' dilemmas with hilariously honest advice.
Then we have But Am I Wrong, which is for the listeners that didn't take our advice. Plus, we share our hot takes on current events.
Then tune in to See You Next Tuesday for our listener poll results from But Am I Wrong?
And finally, wrap up your week with Fisting Friday, where we catch up and talk all things pop culture.
Listen to Don't Blame Me, But Am I Wrong on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday.
And we're back. So they're still doing this calendar. Okay.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yes. So this is when Napoleon says, this shitty little directorate government is actually not giving me personally enough power. Let me seize power through the coup de Brumaire. It's so named because it is a coup in the fake month of Brumaire.
Thank you. I'm so glad. That's why that's the one month I know.
Yes. So Napoleon is not quite emperor yet, but he's sort of like acting emperor. He's taking charge of things. He's like, oh, no one's going to be in power. I'll be in power. That's
right.
Why.
There is sort of like a power vacuum. Like there's, like
which is why who's in charge is a really good question. No one until Napoleon says, I can do that.
Yeah. Okay.
So he steps into the vacuum. Everything's super crazy at this point. You know, it's politically unstable. Everyone's freaking out. We just had a revolution. What's going on? And Lafayette uses this moment to be his sneaky little asshole self. And so he puts on the disguise and gets a fake passport and sneaks back into France. And he's like, great, I could go home now. No one's paying attention to me. His fake passport uses the name Moitié, which is one of his 11 names. So it wasn't actually very good at the disguise, but he tried. He went back to like Chavagnac-Lafayette, where his family home was, and just sort of moved it. And it's like, great, I'm going to try and mind my business. Mm-hmm. Napoleon reaches out to him and says, hey, you're the guy who's in all of the history. Would you like to be involved in the new government that I'm making? Do you think that would be helpful? And
can we be meeting? We'll meet on the 13th Brumaire. And Lafayette's like, I still don't get that.
I still don't know what that is. I missed that part.
Yeah.
I was absent that day. Yeah. Lafayette refuses all offers to serve in politics. Rightfully, another man who reads the room and was like, do you remember 6 years ago when they were burning me in effigy in the streets? I don't think I should be in politics right now. Please leave me alone.
I would like to be removed from the narrative. Thank you.
He sure would. Napoleon then decides to declare himself the first emperor of France and takes power for life. This is 1804. Lafayette, as a citizen of France, or still this rich, important guy, was allowed to vote, and he voted no. He said, no, thank you. This is
He's
bullshit.
on the right side of history. Yeah.
But Napoleon did it anyway.
The bullshit of this, the hypocrisy of this, just that they're like, we're getting rid of the monarchy, and in its place, monarchy, but with a different
emperor. It's even worse.
Emperor for life.
Colonialism as well as monarchy. It's just baffling to me.
Yeah. Just the way we talked about this, listeners, in the Rochelle episode. You explained all of the like permutations of government that happened, and then it's like, then it was monarchy again, then it was Napoleon's like relative, then it was like royalty again, then it was like this other guy. Like, it gets crazy. We don't need to get into that because Lafayette's not up in that business. I hope.
Not yet.
Actually, he probably is.
He probably is.
What am I saying? So he's always up in that shit.
He's up in all the business. So 1804, Napoleon is the emperor. I have in my notes just remember to laugh at Napoleon for losing the Haitian Revolution in 1803 because they kicked his ass, and fuck him. So
we're gonna be later this season talking more about Haitian Revolution, which has got a lot of there's some. It's important. It connects a lot of the stuff they're talking about, but also it's just like a real positive energy.
It's a really
like
satisfying story of Napoleon said, let's bring back slavery. And Haiti said, let's bring back kicking your ass. And it worked.
No, it's an interesting time. And it's in the context of this sort of like revolutionary period. It's the Haitian Revolution was, I believe, the only successful revolt by enslaved people in ever.
I think so.
By like Black enslaved people. Anyway.
It's an incredible story.
Yeah, and a good part of it is the fact that it like is against Napoleon. So
which makes it even better. Okay. So all of this, Lafayette is trying his damnedest to keep his head down. 1807, sadly, Marie Antoinette passes away due to old-timey illness. Her last words were, "Je suis tout à vous," which is, "I am all yours," because they are the cutest little babies.
It's so rare in history, like not just this podcast, but like history, to have just like a nice couple.
They love each other so much, and
are like good to each other. It's so rare. Yeah.
And it's real because she like, you don't go to prison for a guy you kind of like.
Yeah.
That was, they're just relationship goals is the Lafayettes. And the fact that we don't have a biopic of their marriage is so infuriating to me. We got another Josephine Napoleon movie. But where's my Adrienne Lafayette movie? Where's this? Where is it?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you want to talk about the Napoleonic Wars. I don't really. They happened during this time.
I just want to know about what Lafayette's up to.
Was he up to mourning his wife and removing himself from the narrative?
And Napoleonic Wars are just kind of happening in the background. And he's just like, you know that one scene in, I want to say, the second Twilight movie where she's just like sad and like the seasons just pass and she's just sad? That's Lafayette. Yeah.
That is what's happening, yeah.
Like Brumaire turns into like
Vendôme turns into Brumaire. Yeah.
And he's just like sitting, just sad. Yeah.
The thing he does do is he kind of like makes his house the unofficial American embassy for any Americans who are visiting France during this time. So like he gets to hang out with his friends, and that's probably good for him during this time of sadness. So
and just remembering their good times when he was 18 and they were all revolutionaries together in America.
Yeah. And he's still got his 3 kids. So they take care of him. Yeah. So blah, 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 Napoleon, blah, blah, blah. He's emperor until 1815 when he gets deposed and sent all the fucking way to St. Helena. And he's out of the picture, thank God. So the next kind of interesting thing that happens in Lafayette's life is in 1824, which is, if I'm doing the math right in my head, roughly the 50th anniversary of the American Revolution starting. So this is like his big victory lap. This is when he goes back to America and is like going to go on a tour of the new country and see how things have gone since he helped found this country. And I love this for him because he is welcomed like a goddamn hero. There are crowds of people like clogging the streets to see him. There's parades. There's so much incredible merch made with his face on it during this tour. You can get like Lafayette tea towels and Lafayette plates and like Lafayette thimbles. They went nuts. And he toured the whole country all over with his son, George Washington Lafayette. And they were there for like 2 years. He met every single important American person who was alive in 1824. His Wikipedia page at this point is just like all links for all the people that he saw. I think he met Andrew Jackson at this point, and fuck Andrew Jackson, but whatever.
This is when, to overlap with the previous Vulgar History episode, is where he went obviously to Monticello to hang out with Thomas J. And that's where like he would have been like, oh, Sally Hemings. Yes, I remember her from like when we were hanging out in that house in Paris. Like, this is interesting. I see there are some like mixed race sons of Sally Hemings and who look exactly like Thomas Jefferson. Okay. You remember I'm like for the abolition of slavery, but like, okay.
I see what's happening here, TJ. I'm no dummy.
But he saw Sally, and so that was, he was so nice. I like to think that he and Sally would have been happy to see each other.
I think he would. Yeah, he would have remembered her for sure. Like, hey, Sally, remember those good times before I went to prison? Those were fun days. Yeah, he is 68 years old at this point, by the way. So that between his 40s and his 60s, that was avoid Napoleon years, and now he starts to get into like the aftermath of it all.
Okay.
So Lafayette returns to France after his big celebratory American tour in 1825. And in 1830, and there is another fucking revolution.
This is the part that's so confusing to me.
I know.
And we went through all this in the Rochelle episode, but it's just like the turnover rate of like
astonishing.
Who is in charge? It's just like it's a monarch, it's a Napoleon, it's a monarch, it's a like it's just
right. France
is never not revolutioning.
They love a revolution at this point. The 19th century in France is just a revolution every 3 years. It's
just they're like, my parents told me about the revolution they did. That sounded like fun. Let's do one now.
Let's do that.
Revolution for the new generation. Okay, so there's a new revolution, and what is the result? Wait, who was in charge after Napoleon stopped?
I don't know if this was. I think it was Louis the 18th.
So after Napoleon was defeated, then it went back to a monarchy. Wait, Louis the 18th.
Mm-hmm. Because Louis the 16th was executed, and out of respect for his son, Louis, who was killed in prison, they made that one who was never actually king the 17th, and they skipped to the 18th.
Okay, I was thinking like we've missed one. Okay.
Yeah, that was baby casualty.
Is this Louis the king? Is this Philippe Égalité? No, that's a different person.
That's a different one.
Okay. Because he also wanted to be king. Okay.
This one is not as important to the story. He's the one who is bridging Napoleon and Charles X, who's the one that was actually in power, like at the very start of the 1830 revolution. Because he came into power and everyone fucking hated him.
Okay. God, thank you for knowing all this. Because it's such a mess. I can't believe that Lafayette, like we're American Revolution, French Revolution, and then he lived long enough to be into these like the next French Revolution. Like,
yeah, I'm sure he came back and he's like, "What the fuck is happening in the House of Commons? This is insane."
He's just like, "What? Can I live 1 year that is just like normal? Can I just have one normal year where there's not like unprecedented times?"
He wanted a precedented time at some point. Yes.
Okay. So he came back.
So 1830, Charles X is king, and no one likes him, including Lafayette. Lafayette's like, take a look at this asshole. What? He's an ultra royalist, like kind of a trying to crack down on free expression and like no one can assemble. Everyone has to do exactly what I say. And so Lafayette, who by this point I think is in his 70s, is just like giving shady toasts at dinner parties, being like, to France and everybody except for Charles X, who fucking sucks and I hate him, which I love because I love a drama queen. But in 1830, the people of Paris get fed up with how much Charles X sucks, and they sort of take to the streets and start building barricades, as the people in Paris are wont to do.
But this is not Les Miserables.
No, this is the one 2 years before where things actually happened.
Okay, but there are barricades.
But there are barricades, yes.
Okay, yes.
So Charles is like, oh, the people want to kill me. I'm going to run the fuck away. And he gets out of town. And then the Revolution of 1830, which is also called the July Revolution. This lasts for like a week or two.
Wait, they're no more Brumaire?
No, we're back to July.
Did that go away when Napoleon left?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it lasted through the revolution in the empire, and then the kings came back, and they're like, we can't fucking do this. This is silly.
Which is true.
Yes.
And yes. Okay, so barricades.
Yes,
Wait,
yes.
so, okay. So
this is where it all goes off. Yeah.
It's a runaway train this whole decade. So who gets put in charge after this 1830 revolution?
This is Louis Philippe, which is Philippe Égalité.
Philippe Égalité, who people will know, he was bros with Chevalier de Saint George.
Oh wait, no, I'm so sorry. This is a different Philippe. We are about 6 years after that. Yeah, this is the citizen king. This is just another king.
Okay. Yeah, I just like that the one guy, he was cool. Saint George's friend, Philippe, was just like, I'm not like the other aristocrats. I'm cool. I'm not Philippe like Prince. I'm like Philippe Égalité. Anyway, it was memorable to me that he changed his name.
No, that's cool.
Okay, so this is a new guy who's...
Yes, but before we get to this, I want to tell you my favorite part about the July Revolution of 1830, which is that 70-year-old Lafayette took to the barricades with his musket and was again named the head of the Parisian National Guard and fought in the streets in the July Revolution because he hated Charles X so fucking much. This man was Joe Biden's age, and he said, I'm going for it. Fuck this man. And I'm
picturing him just like, like people maybe helping him climb up the barricades. He's just like, oh, I just got my hip replacement surgery. I'm on the wait list. I got it. Yeah.
They're like, he's a little old, but he's got the spirit. Let him go.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Lafayette.
Legendary. Okay. So this is his, he's on the streets. And then the king now is Louis Philippe, who is often called the citizen king, which is why I got confused with Philippe Égalité. Because his whole thing was, I'm not like the other kings. I'm a cool king. I like you people. Because he saw what happened to Charles and was like, oh, I better not be like that. Let me be a liberal king who's buds with the people. Blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
Louis Philippe asked Lafayette if he wanted to come work in government. And Lafayette said, thank you, but I am retired. Please leave me the fuck alone. And he went home.
Mm-hmm.
So, this, because it comes up, the 1832 revolution is the Les Mis revolution. It's just like people are still kind of pissed off about Louis Philippe. So there's a bunch of little skirmishes throughout like the 1830s because people are just like, we had one revolution. Let's have 10 more. Why not?
Like, well, it's kind of like once you've done one revolution, it's easier to do a second one and then to do a third one.
Yes.
Like, you kind of know there's people around who were there before. Like, they know how to build the barricades. Like, people know what's up. But this time, Lafayette stays out of it.
Stays the fuck at home. He's literally 75 years old during that one.
Yeah.
So he's decided, actually, I'm done now.
Yeah.
And nothing happens in that revolution. It's failed. Louis Philippe stays king, probably because Lafayette wasn't out there being amazing, because every revolution he fights in seems to work. But,
well, he just chooses the good ones to...
He does.
I don't know. The ones he chooses happen to be successful. Is that because he's there, or is that because he just chooses the good ones? I don't know, but...
Hard to say, but correlation for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So Lafayette passes away of pneumonia in May 1834 at age 77. which is way longer than I thought someone like him was going to live based on the way his story went. But he
based on
didn't quit.
the amount of revolutions and battles and then the jail time and the emperor
of it all, the enemies of Napoleon. It's like a whole thing. And he made it 77, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And he was buried next to Marie Antoinette. Their graves are next to each other. And it's adorable. And also, if you look at a picture of Lafayette's tomb, they just have all of his first initials. And then De Lafayette at the end, because there's no room. So his tomb says MJPYRG Dumoitier, and it's adorable.
That's what there's space for.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that is the many revolutions of the Marquis de Lafayette. He is known as the man of 2 revolutions. I think technically he had 5, but whatever. Close enough.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was like, well, it's definitely more than 2. But 2 that were especially well known.
2 ones that are named after countries, yeah.
Okay, so we're doing this like I have this scale and we can't change the categories. So we'll just, because then I'd have to retroactively change everyone's score and like we just stick in these categories.
Yeah.
So I think, like, it's not a surprise. Like, sexism bonus is 0. Like, I'm just going to fill that in first because
literally, he had every privilege imaginable, every single one of them. He is the privilege. So
truly, nothing culturally or societally was holding him back at all.
No,
but
except for all of his money during the French Revolution. But I refuse to count that.
Fair. No, it's like, oh, poor him, who's rich. Okay, so the first category we're going to actually score him on is scandaliciousness. And I think, because scandaliciousness is a lot of looking at like people of the time and how did they see him, and where he was in like America and also in France, like him going to America was so scandalous. Like he had to sneak away and stuff, and it was like treason. So the people in France would have seen that as scandalous. And then during the French Revolution, I feel he was very scandalous as a person, but he was so charming that no one stayed mad that long.
That's the thing. I think he was scandalous, but he wasn't considered scandalous because he would just come in and say, hey, don't worry about it. I'm so charming. Forget about it. And just smooth everything over. And he also was like scandalous politically, but in his personal life, he's the least scandalous person. He just loved his wife.
He was a wife guy. Yeah.
He never had any like personal scandals. It was all like revolution-based scandals.
Like I think to his father-in-law, he was
10 out of 10.
Very scandalous in that. Like so this might be like a medium score because like to some people, like he was put in jail for like. It's not nothing, but it's not a super high score because like even when he like ran away to America, fought in the war, came back, the king was like, I can't be mad.
I can't be mad at you, you scoundrel. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's where the privilege comes in as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, like a 5? I don't know.
I'd give him a 6 maybe.
Okay. Because it was certainly a much more scandalous life than like most or perhaps and any other men of his rank were up to.
Yes.
Like he was
always up to something.
Speaking of scheminess.
Okay, this is where I want to give him higher scores because this man had a scheme always.
Yeah.
If it was a military scheme or a political scheme, there was never there was a small time when he was sitting at home not getting actively involved in things, but up until he was 73 years old and he's like, let me go and state myself in the National Guard to lead a revolution. Like he didn't quit.
There's like big schemes in the form of like war plans and, battlefield stuff, that all the schemes of like all the battles he won in the American Revolution. But then there's like smaller, like more personal schemes, like running away to get the warship, like going with the guy as far as Marseille and then back through the woods. And then like, I'm going to wait till after they search the ship. That like,
there's also the half escape from prison with Angelica Schuyler's physician.
Yeah.
Like there were all kinds of things.
Yeah. Well, and even he was trying to do a scheme by writing to all his friends in America. They just didn't meet him halfway.
He's even trying to do a scheme by naming his baby Marie Antoinette. Like he was up on it.
And the schemes were not all good. Like going with kissing Marie Antoinette's hand in front of the crowd. Not a good scheme, but a scheme nonetheless.
A scheme nonetheless. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think this is a high score, but I will let you, as his ultimate fan, decide the number.
I would give him an 8, I think.
Mm-hmm.
This should be his highest score for sure.
Yeah. And then the final category for him is significance.
Actually, I take it back. This might be where he's strong. Because he's sort of like guided 2 countries into revolutions that fundamentally reshaped how they are today. So, yeah, I mean, he was there for everything. We don't call him the Forrest Gump of the 19th century for no reason. So,
and he wasn't just there. He was instrumental in the American Revolution happening. And because the American Revolution happened, like that fundamentally changed world history.
Yeah, like without the guns and ships, would they have won? Without him at Battle of Yorktown, would America have won the revolution? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe not. It was touch and go for a lot of that.
Yeah, no, he's very significant there. And then he was right there for so much of the French Revolution stuff. It's like Napoleon is like a more significant figure in terms of like global history, but Lafayette was there for all that stuff, and he was trying to slow it down, and he didn't succeed. But if he hadn't been there to slow it down, I think he's less significant in the French Revolution, honestly, just because it probably would have ended up the way that it did had he not been there, just maybe even faster. But you can't deny that he shaped the way it went. Yeah. I think this is a high score. I think this would be a 9.
I think a 9 is fair because Napoleon would get the 10. And I don't want them to share that score.
No, and we're never, listeners, we have done, this asshole Napoleon episode. I'm never going to do a actual vulgar history episode about Napoleon.
No, he doesn't deserve that.
No. Allison?
Did I get the same score that I always get for all of my people, Anne?
So the score that you got is 23. Just to remind you of the other people we've talked about. Empress Elizabeth of Russia has a 23.
Perfect.
Lola Montez has a 23. Catalina de Erauso, 23.5. Rochelle, 26. So
okay. That tracks. I have a type, Anne, and it's 23.
23 and me, the Allison Epstein story.
Exactly that.
So just a sec. I'm putting in the scores. So 6, 8, 9, 0. I love that everyone you talk about is
a 23.
It's like a little neighborhood.
All of my favorites.
of just little dirtbags. I think Christopher Marlowe, 22.5.
There we go. Fabulous.
So
someday I'm going to get a 34 and it's going to blow your mind.
It's going to, I don't know if we can.
I don't think so either. Because they're either significant or they're scandalous, but they're never 2 things.
No, they're never more than 2 things. I do want to mention we do have there's 2 categories I want to consider for Adrienne. There's the Lady Jane Seymour Memorial Award for Outstanding Supporting Performance. And then there's also the next higher level, the Jeweled Tortoise Award for Legendary Friend Behavior.
Okay. I know what I would say, but I'm biased. So
I would put her in the Jeweled Tortoise, I think.
Okay, I would too. Because she's a legend.
Like the going to jail.
Yeah.
That's what, like, I think she was like such a good like partner, like supporting person in his life. Just sort of like they loved each other so much and they were best friends. But then where she takes it to a Jewel Tortoise level is where she's just like, fuck this. I'm tired of being away from my husband. I'm just going to take my children and go be in jail with him.
Yeah. It's
that's
love, babes.
No, like that's the David Rizzio level of commitment to your person.
That's like, it's so good. They're just good for each other. And the wrong kind of wife for the Marquis de Lafayette would have been like, oh, woe is me. My husband is off doing yet another revolution. And she was like, no, that's just what he does. I'm here for him. I love this about him. It's just, they're perfect for each other.
It's so nice. It's so rare to have a nice love story on this podcast. Sometimes I'm like, oh, what do I have scheduled for like coming up the week of, Valentine's Day. And so I was like, oh, no. It has never yet worked out to be a nice story because there's almost never a nice story, but this one is, like their love story.
Yeah.
And Lafayette, wow, Allison, thank you. He really connects things in such a, like, season 7, part 1, the American Revolution stuff, to part 2, the French Revolution stuff. And then, anyway.
He saw everything. So he's a very good context historical person. If you want to, like, what happened between 1770 and 1820? He saw all of it. And it's incredible and very efficient of him to do that.
Yeah. And he was, like, in the midst of all of it. Because, you know, sometimes I look at people who were, like, born in, you know, 1927 and they died in 2006. I'm just like, my God, like the way, like the world that they saw and how it changed. But it's not just like he saw it. It was like he was there in it.
Yeah, all of it. It's incredible.
Like charging his way to the front of all of it.
Yeah. Age 73.
Yeah, life did not happen to him.
No, he happened to life.
Yes. It's like Celine Dion. The shoes do not wear me. I wear the shoes.
Exactly. I think that's the first Marquis de Lafayette Celine Dion comparison I've ever heard, but I support it.
And all of the French Revolution stuff I'm hearing, just I keep thinking back to we haven't talked about this, but I want to now. The Olympic opening ceremony.
Yes.
The unhinged France-ness.
It was the most France of anything I've ever seen.
It made me think, like the context of the 2 so far French movies that I've made you and Lana watch for Vulgar Piece Theater. I was just like, oh, those are not aberrations. That's just what France does. This is what their media is like. It's just like headless Marie Antoinette's, like death metal music, like the Phantom of the Opera in a fencing mask running around the rooftops and then finding the barricades from Les Mis.
Insanity. Just at any moment, a man could have come out and taken his secret second arm out of his coat and waved it around and said, in fact, I am the wizard. That's a Vulgar Piece Theater deep cut. It's not a deep cut. I tell everybody about it.
It's those opening ceremonies. It just like hearing like just you explaining the French Revolution and everything. I'm just like, France has always been like this.
The
just
most.
Like, this is the spirit of this nation. Like born in the bosom of Fredegund and just revolutions, decapitations.
Forever. Yeah.
Like people watch those opening ceremonies and were like, oh, I didn't care for that. Oh, that was weird. I was just like, that was the best thing I've ever seen in my life.
That was made just for you and your Queen Margot loving heart.
Although I will say there was a part where they were like, they talked about how there's not as many statues of women as men in France. And so they're like, and so we created these statues and we're going to donate them to France. And every time a woman came up, I'm like, Rochelle? Is it going to be a statue of Rochelle? And it kept not being a statue of Rochelle. And that's the one thing I missed. There was no...
Oh.
Although there was the part where that one woman was wearing sort of a French flag dress and she was singing the Marseillaise. And I'm like, that's Rochelle.
That's Rochelle. She was present.
That's the spirit of Rochelle is in that moment. But honestly, every time a statue came up, I'm like, who's it going to be?
Is it one of my girls?
And it was none of my girls. But still, Allison, so you tell everybody about your book that you have coming up.
Yes. My new book is coming out in February 25th. It is called Fagin the Thief, and it is about what it says in the title, which is a retelling of Oliver Twist from Fagin's point of view. I love it very much. I'm very excited to share it with people, and it is coming up alarmingly fast.
And it is available for pre-order, and pre-orders are so important. It's a way, like, everyone's going to read it anyway. So it's just good to pre-order it first, because the more people who pre-order it, the more bookstores are like, oh, people are interested in this book. And the bookstores buy more copies for other people to serendipitously find it.
Absolutely. So, also, if you did not pick up Let the Dead Bury the Dead in hardcover, it is coming out in paperback probably by the time you hear this episode. So it is now easier to put in a bag, lighter to carry around. Still got the same beautiful cover on it.
I was going to say, is it a different cover?
But no, it is the same one.
The same cover. What's a lovely cover? That's good. And you can just make it paperback size. It doesn't need to change entirely.
Yes.
And your first book, tell people about your first book too, in case people have never heard of you before.
Hi, to welcome to new listeners. My first book is A Tip for the Hangman. It is a Kit Marlowe spy story, which is why I was on this podcast to talk about Kit Marlowe. That one's available as well, wherever you buy your books, if you're in North America.
There was, every now and then, I download the TikTok app and look at it to see if anyone has sent me any messages. And then I watch them and then I delete it again because I don't care for it. But anyway, somebody had made a video of like her book haul. And she was just like, I get all my historical fiction recommendations from Vulgar History. And so then she was holding up, she's like, I got this and this. And then she's like, and I got this. It's by Allison Epstein. Like, I've heard her on the podcast so many times. I'm so excited to read it. And it was your first book. It was Tip for the Hangman.
My first baby.
I know. I was just like, aw. So yes, you are a Vulgar History celebrity.
I try my best.
I'm so happy to have you back on. And Lana will be on in the new year because she'll be talking about Maria Theresa when we get to
her
the like
fave.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like she's going to explain the Habsburgs, much like I brought you on to explain the French Revolution.
Thanks for not bringing me on to explain the Habsburgs because I cannot.
I can't either, and that's why she's going to be on. But yeah, just for people who are wondering where my semi-regular co-hosts, we're all really busy. But
Anne's just writing a book, no big deal.
Yeah, MBD. But and Allison, so tell people also your Substack and how they can follow you there.
Yes, that is the social media I'm most active on now that Twitter has gone to hell. You can find me on Substack if you search Dirtbags Through the Ages. It is a bi-weekly Substack where I talk about the weird, wild, and shitty people in history and why I love them. There is a Marquis de Lafayette newsletter up there, even though he is not shitty. He is just weird and wacky, and I love him. So I made an exception to count him in there.
Well, and that was part of what, like, I knew he was your guy, and you wrote the Substack, and I know you're busy, but I was like, I bet Allison could just talk off the top of her head about Lafayette. This is not asking you to do any extra work because I know you're very busy.
There was no additional research done for this episode. This was, what are all the things that I love about Lafayette? Let me write them down and double check the dates.
No, that's perfect. So thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. I'll let the listeners know that next week we're going to be having our Halloween special.
Ooh.
And it's going to be an appropriately gruesome French Revolution era story with another special guest, but people will find out what that is next week. Thank you, Allison.
Thank you, Anne.
So Allison gave you all the info about how to follow them on Substack and special order, pre-order her new book. And I'll just tell you some stuff about me. So first of all, I did a guest appearance on a podcast called Ye Old Crime Podcast, where they discuss the funny, strange, and obscure crimes of yesteryear. It's a delightful series if you're into historical true crime type stuff. And so they have an ongoing series where they invite people like me, other podcasters on to, it's called Can You Crack the Cramp Word, which are all Victorian slang terms. And that's what the show is. Like I came on and I talked a bit about vulgar history and how I started the show and things. And then I was given some obscure Victorian slang terms and I had to see if I could guess what they meant. And you'll have to listen to Ye Old Crime Podcast to see how I did. And also I'll just let you know that there's lots of ways you can follow me and this podcast and keep up with what's up. So I'm on Instagram at Vulgar History Pod, and I'm also on Threads at Vulgar History Pod, and I have a Patreon, which is where I would encourage if you want to get all my updates. That's the place where I put them all. So you can join the Patreon for free if you want. It's patreon.com/AnneFosterWriter. And when you go on there, then you get all my various updates about things that are going on, including a new Patreon-only podcast. Casual podcast is what I'm calling it. And what that means is I can record them and then post them right away. And Christina, our longtime editor, Christina Lawagi, is not involved in this one because I don't want to put that pressure on myself. I just like making it be loosey-goosey and free and casual. And so what this is. It's called Anne is Writing a Podcast. Sorry, fix that. What it's called Anne is Writing a Book, Rebel of the Regency, for I am writing a book about Caroline of Brunswick. And I just like to be able to turn on the microphone every now and then when I just have things that I need to talk to somebody about who understands what I'm talking about. And that those people are you. So if you want to listen to all that, just join the Patreon. You can hear that. I'll also be posting all the book updates and stuff there too. Anyway, and once you've joined the Patreon, if you decide that you want to take it up to the next level, for $1 a month, you get early ad-free access to all upcoming episodes and ad-free access to all previous episodes of Vulgar History. And if you pledge at least $5 or more a month on the Patreon, then you get access to our Discord, the Vulgar History Salon, where you can chat with me and with other Tits Out Brigade members. And also for the $5 a month, then you get to listen to other bonus podcast episodes that I do there. So Vulgar Piece Theater, where I talk about costume dramas. We're on a bit of a hiatus because Allison, busy with Fagin the Thief coming out, me, busy with writing a book, Lana Wood Johnson, busy with undisclosed secret Lana projects. So, but hopefully we'll be getting back into that soon. But if you just join the Patreon, you can listen to all of our previous episodes, which are all a good time. I think the less we like a movie, the more fun the podcast is. But I think that's how it usually goes with like movie discussion podcasts. And there's also episodes on there at that $5 a month level of So This Asshole, where I talk about men from history who are terrible. Not like Lafayette. Lafayette, not a So This Asshole candidate because he was cool. And I also am on Substack, which is like a newsletter thing where I post essays, or as people call them, pieces about women from history. And maybe that will expand into other genders too. Who knows? We'll see. But right now, currently, I'm writing a series called Difficult Women. And actually, because it's October and Halloween is coming up, I've been posting essays about some Halloween adjacent women we've talked about on this podcast. Like I posted about Elizabeth Woodville, who was maybe a witch, maybe descended from, what was it, like Luxembourg mermaid witches. I posted about Mary Shelley. I've posted about Elizabeth Bathory. So anyway, if you want to experience what it's like to read my words instead of hearing me say them, it's on Substack at vulgarhistory.substack.com. We also work alongside, hand in hand with our brand partner, Common Era Jewelry, which is a woman-owned small business that makes beautiful heirloom jewelry inspired by women and other people, but mostly women, from classical history. The designs are all inspired by classical mythology, women from classical mythology, or women from classical history, except for Anne Boleyn, she just got sort of like, she gets to be in just because she's cool. But so there's lots of people from, I'm just thinking like the Halloween vibes of it all, like Hecate is there, and not really Halloween vibes, but just like Sappho was there for all the sapphics in the listening audience. They have this new beautiful pendant that's about fertility and childbirth. Anyway, it's a wonderful company. I'm really happy to be partnered with them. And Vulgar History listeners can always get 15% off all items from Common Era by going to commonera.com/vulgar or using code VULGAR at checkout. If you want to get some Vulgar History merchandise to be your Halloween costume, if you're going to go in costume as a member of the Tits Out Brigade, you can go to vulgarhistory.com/store, where there's lots of, again, I really want to emphasize the cozy, the crew neck sweatshirt we have. Karen Moynihan, friend of the podcast, design that says Vulgar History, not taking history seriously since 2019. By the time you listen to this, I think there should also be a new design there as well that you could also get on, a cozy crew neck sweatshirt if you wanted. It was inspired by a recent silly review message that somebody left me where they criticized, they said that this podcast is poorly researched, which it's like, I would never show you a picture of my messy kitchen table/desk where I record this and do my writing. But the amount of library books, interlibrary loans, like obscure used books that I've had to purchase because that's the only way I could get a certain piece of information, it's like, come at me, bro. Like, there's lots of things you can criticize me about, but my research ethic, no, like, come on. So anyway, to vent my frustrations about that, I commissioned a friend of the podcast, Siobhan Gallagher, who made some of the other, actually, it's sort of a series that Siobhan has done for me of when people say silly things about the show. I put them into cute designs that she makes. So there's Poorly Researched. It's in the same sort of visual series as the one that says, what is it? Like unscholarly and rambling. Anyway, so Vulgar History store, vulgarhistory.com/store. If you're in the US or if you're outside the US, go to vulgarhistory.redbubble.com. And if you want to get in touch with me, I would love it if you did. You can get in touch with me at, if you go to vulgarhistory.com, there's a form there, and the form sends an email to me, and then I'll see your email. And otherwise, next week, we're having our annual Halloween special episode, something I have to really emphasize. It's going to be gruesome, and it's going to be a good time, and I'm going to have a very special guest. So until then, keep your pants on and your tits out. Vulgar History is researched, written, and hosted by Anne Foster. That's me. The editor is Christina Lumagi. Theme music is by the Severn Duo. The Vulgar History Show image is by Deborah Wong. Transcripts are written by Aveline Malik. Find transcripts of recent episodes at vulgarhistory.com.
Welcome to the small town of Chinook, where faith runs deep and secrets run deeper. In this new thriller, religion and crime collide when a gruesome murder rocks the isolated Montana community. Everyone is quick to point their fingers at a drug-addicted teenager, but local deputy Ruth Vogel isn't convinced. She suspects connections to a powerful religious group. Enter federal agent V.B. Laureau, who has been investigating a local church for possible criminal activity. The pair form an unlikely partnership to catch the killer, unearthing secrets that leave Ruth torn between her duty to the law, her religious convictions, and her very own family. But something more sinister than murder is afoot, and someone is watching Ruth.
Chinook, starring Kelly Marie Tran and Sanaa Lathan. Listen to Chinook wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, this is Rob Benedict.
And I am Richard Spate. We were both on a little show you might know called Supernatural.
It had a pretty good run, 15 seasons, 327 episodes.
And though we have seen, of course, every episode many times, we figured, hey, now that we're wrapped, let's watch it all again.
And we can't do that alone, so we're inviting the cast and crew that made the show along for the ride. We've got writers, producers, composers, directors, and we'll of course have some actors on as well, including some certain guys that played some certain pretty iconic brothers.
It was kind of a little bit of a left field choice in the best way possible.
The note from Kripke was, he's great, we love him, but we're looking for like a really intelligent Duchovny type.
With 15 seasons to explore, it's going to be the road trip of several lifetimes. So please join us and subscribe to Supernatural then and now.